This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Put your questions in the comments so that I can answer your questions today. So I usually come on around lunchtime, but I did not make it for a very good reason. So because the day is very busy with appointments and client meetings, I really just have the lunchtime, and we got some unexpected but great news today. Another one of my clients was approved for T status. Now, this is very dear to my heart because whenever a client is for T status, it is usually a client that would not usually have an option to apply for any kind of status or relief here. And so for every victory, it means that a life has been changed and that now there is an option available for that client. So I had to take the time to call my client and celebrate with my client regarding the victory. So with this situation, and I want to just take a minute, I'm going to also talk about how to know when the green card interview, meaning they're not going to have the interview, they're just going to send the green card in the mail. But I do want to take a minute to talk about this victory because I think it's very important for people to understand that you may not believe you have an option. You may feel like your back is against the wall, but you have options here. And this client, this dear client of mine, had faith in our process, had faith that we knew what we were doing, trusted us, and we got our client through this process successfully. Now, in the case where you are even with a significant other, they're not your spouse, maybe they promised you marriage, but when you got here or you started to live with them, they did not follow through with that promise. Instead, you found out that their true intent was to keep you trapped in this situation, keep you undocumented, so that you can essentially be like a maid to them. You may be in the household just doing household work. They may not allow you to leave, or they may be very controlling about what you do outside of the house. This is considered a form of trafficking under immigration law, especially when they start to hold your immigration status over your head to make you afraid to leave the situation. And this is a situation that my client experienced, was that this individual kept this client in this situation so that they were afraid to leave. That is what makes it a trafficking situation, is nobody should be forced. And when I say force, I don't mean physical force. Nobody should be forced through any kind of coercion, meaning they try to get to your fears, they try to abuse you emotionally and verbally to keep you restrained. Nobody has the right to do that to you, no matter what your immigration status is. And if a person is doing this to you, then you are going through a form of trafficking. And especially if they're doing this to you and they're benefiting from keeping you in this position, they're benefiting by keeping you working in the house, keeping you working for their business. They're forcing you to take care of the kids, especially where the kids are not yours. They're the person's kids, but they're still making you stay in the house to do that. Then it means that you're being forced to do something against your will. And if you were given a choice, you would not even be in the relationship anymore. But because of their behavior towards you, the mistreatment, because they're holding your immigration status over your head, you feel forced to. And this is not something that I have won cases based on this. So this is why I'm telling you this, because I know there are many people out there who they think it's either marriage or nothing at all. So you end up in a relationship where you have committed to this person, they have committed to you and they promised you that they would do right by you, sure you get your status so you can move forward, but then they don't do this. And the reason they don't do this is because they want to sabotage you. They want to keep you undocumented because it's benefiting them. It's benefiting them to have you work in the house, to have you work in their business, to have you take care of the kids, this to have you even provide to their needs, any kind of demanding of you. And that's what makes it trafficking here, especially in the case that you don't want to do this. You don't want to be in this situation, but you feel forced. So give us a call. Let's evaluate your situation and determine whether you are going through a similar situation to my client and whether you can get the immigration relief you need to thrive, to move forward, to build, to get an option for yourself. You don't, and a lot of people think that they have to stay there and wait until this person who's forcing you to be in this situation is ready to marry you, right? And first of all, I'm going to tell you, with someone like this, you're never going to get anywhere. Even if they marry you, even if they marry you, they're not going to make sure, they're not going to see to it that you get that green card because they're benefiting from you being undocumented. It's really simple. If you have a significant other, it's not complicated. If you have a significant other and they want to make sure that you are there for the family, that you all can thrive together as a family, that you can build a life together, they're going to see to it that they get your papers for you, that they work with you to get your papers. And if they haven't done that, from the minute you've decided to move forward and build a life together, it's very unlikely that they're going to see to it that you get this done. Now, if you're married, now another thing is, say you're married to this person, but they're not a citizen or a resident, but they're doing this. They're forcing you to stay in this situation. They're mistreating you. They're subjecting you to extreme cruelty. They're using coercive threats to keep you right where you are, to force you to stay there. In that case, you can still apply for this, whether you're married, whether you're not married. And then there's VAWA. So VAWA is if the spouse is a citizen or resident. You can also apply for resident through VAWA. So this is where I'm saying to you, there are options available. You just have to take the steps. And I leave it to you to seek out those options. Call the office, schedule an appointment. Appointments are filling up. My schedule is filling up. So make sure you get on my schedule so I can help you. Because these victories that we're seeing um, are there, it's changing the lives of my clients. That's the most fulfilling part about this. And when I spoke to my client today, um, it was such a, I mean, she knew that her life was going to change for the better in that moment. So go ahead, give us a call, schedule that appointment so we can evaluate your situation. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and answer some. Well, no, now I have another topic. So I have a bunch of goodies to tell you today. So that's the first, is the good news. That's why I was not here at noon, is because I had to spend that time celebrating with my client and then jumping right back into work. So now this is why I am a little late today. But I did promise you that I would also talk about other victories we've experienced in this past week. So we've gotten an approved I-130 petition, and the client is going through adjustment of status. And based on the direction of the process, we know that it's going to be waived. I know, based on my experience, based on past cases, they usually, the way you know whether they're going to waive it is where they're asking for the medical. So usually they will allow you to take your medical to the interview. So they don't really see it as a requirement to ask for you to send the medical to them. So if you get a request for evidence that says, we need the medical, please send the medical to us. It means that they want to make a decision without an interview. So you send the medical, they make a decision. Otherwise, you would get something to the effect of a letter, a reminder saying, hey, you can send the medical to this address or take it to the interview. In that, when the interview is scheduled, it means that there's probably going to be an interview that's scheduled in the another way to tell is if you're getting the request for evidence directly from the field office, so from the office, and if they're asking for information, so they're asking for documentation that you could have easily taken to the interview, because many times what they do is they look at the basics and whatever you don't have, they ask for it at the interview. So if they're sending a request for evidence and they're saying, we would like you to send your birth certificate. Please send your birth certificate to this office, this field office. It means that maybe somehow you didn't send the birth certificate from the start, but they would really like to waive the interview. So they are asking you to send that so they can make the final decision. Otherwise, they usually schedule the appointment and then they go ahead and ask you for your birth certificate at the interview. Now, these are not sure indications because anything can change between the time you send in what they want and the time they make a decision. If they before they make a decision, then they decide they want to schedule an interview, that can always happen. But these are hunches that you are going to get that green card without the interview. No, they're mostly right now they are waiving marriage-based and family-based petitions. And one way to increase your chances of having your interview waived is to make sure your application is done correctly from the start. Do not, don't try to send in a rush and say, oh, I'll just send these things later. Because if your application is deficient, it doesn't have all the right evidence, it doesn't have some of the required documentation, the affidavit of support isn't done correctly, because maybe you're rushing to get it off, that means that they are going to have questions. And where they have questions, they will schedule an interview. And that means that you then have to go through an extra hurdle before you can see that green card in the mail. So the number one thing that you should be doing to ensure that you make sure you increase your chances of getting that interview waived is submit a solid application. Because if they don't have questions, any further questions, or they have very few questions, or it can just be whatever question they have can be resolved through a request for evidence, it means that you could get your interview. All right, so that's all I have for you today. So we've gotten great news this week, and I'm happy. Today is a great day, and I am hoping that you're listening, and if any of these situations apply to you, that you reach out so we can talk about your situation and get started as soon as possible. Because on top of that, the Immigration Service, they have altered their policies to make it more immigrant friendly, to allow immigrants to apply for relief like this. This is how I'm able to get this relief for my clients, is because I'm well aware of these changes in policies, and that the flexibility in the types of evidence or the types of situations that qualify immigrants for different types of relief. So the only way to get a green card is not just marriage. There are other ways. But in my consultations, I evaluate based on your experiences, based on your family ties, based on your family relationships, or hardships you've been through in the past here in the United States, I can look to evaluate whether those alternative forms of relief apply to you, and we get it done. And so today is just one of those days to show that our hard work does pay off, and it has changed our life today. And we've done that for many of our previous clients, and we're grateful that we're able to do that. All right, so questions now. I'm going to go to questions. So put those questions in the comments so that I can answer your questions. Hi there, Marsha. Nice to see you as usual. Thanks so much for joining me. And Believer Scrum, it's always nice to see you. What if I have a child with her? What I should do at this point? So it doesn't matter if you're going through a situation where you're coerced to stay in a relationship. Then it means that you could qualify for relief. Yes, we would have to evaluate where, the situation, the fact that you do have a child, but it does not, having a child does not change the fact that you're being forced to do things you don't want to do by an individual. It doesn't, in that case, it does not make a difference. If you're facing this, you're experiencing this, it means that you qualify here. But we need to talk. This is where we need to talk to evaluate all the aspects of your circumstance and then determine whether this is the right option for you. And now I don't know if another thing is, what if you have a child? I don't know if you're referring to also the marriage-based process. So having a child with a U.S. citizen or who's sponsoring you definitely is a strong evidence, because it's showing that the both of you together have built a life together. You are raising a child together. And so it's strong evidence. And as long as it's presented properly, you could see that interview waive. But keep in mind that they're not only just looking at the evidence of bona fide marriage to decide whether they're going to waive the interview, but they're looking at, do you have the proper paperwork? Do you have the proper affidavit of support to be able to get this waived as well? So this is where it's very important to make sure you have representation and that you're doing it right. So, good evening. Please, do I need a pay stub from my sponsor when he already gave W-2? Yeah. So pay stubs from your sponsor. Are you being sponsored? Yes. So when you have a sponsor who is submitting an affidavit of support, yes, you need the pay stub. They're not, if you don't have show proof that you're getting the income currently, you're going to get a big fat RFE saying there's no proof of the qualifying income. So you want to show exactly how this money is coming in to the sponsor. Are they through the pay stubs? If they own a business, either use the 1099 or Schedule C along with proof that they own the business. You show their business bank account to show the incoming receipts coming in with money coming into the bank. So there are different ways to show income, but the pay stubs is going to be one of the more straightforward ways to prove income if pay stubs exist for the. What if my girlfriend has a bad criminal history? Does it affect green card process if we got married? Yes. So it could, if the crime is involving a minor. So if it involves a minor, then under the Adam Walsh Act, it could definitely create problems. So she could be barred from sponsoring you, but it depends on the type of crime. How long after the biometrics? So let me go here on YouTube, Facebook, and see what's here. If an individual is filing I-485 based on an approved I-140 for their spouse, should they put both 485 I-765 in the same envelope to ensure. So when it comes to how the application is organized and what you should put together, I don't advise on those, especially since I'm not your attorney. I haven't reviewed your case. So when it comes to forms, I don't get into details about how it should be because I don't know what your situation is. Can a school student petition for themselves to get a green card? You do have to, well, let me change that a little bit and say it depends. If you, for example, the national interest waiver could possibly be a way. If coming right out of school, you can show that you meet the requirements of the national interest waiver. That could be one way. But just based on you graduating from school, and then you can't just get a green card just based on graduating from school. How long after biometrics would a person get their EADs? I don't usually go after biometrics because they're all over the place. Usually it's after filing EAD. It depends on what kind of application you're filing. But if you're filing the family-based adjustment of status, you're looking at about 3 to 6 months. If you're applying for employment-based, you're looking at about 3 months. If you're applying for VAWA, you're looking at about 9 to months right now. So the shortest I've seen is 4 months, but on average, 9 to 12 months. Being sponsored, but I'm pregnant. My spouse is USA citizen. Does my child become citizen automatically, or do I need to do I-130? So so you do have, if you're outside of the United States, you will have to register your child as a US citizen at the embassy. So we've done this for our client, and it was a relatively smooth process where the client had the child abroad, but the spouse was a citizen. And so we submitted the application to the embassy. The embassy scheduled an appointment and interviewed the parents to make sure everything was fine. And at that point, issued the passport to the child, the US passport to the child,